there, everyone, and welcome to my channel. My name is EasyVZ on the Discord channel for the Xplane community. I have been promising for a while to make a basic video on how to do a cold and start, program the flight management computer, how to utilize the autopilot function specifically for the Zibo 737-800X aircraft. That is a freeware aircraft. It's one of the best aircrafts that you can fly for a Boeing 737 in the Xplane community. We are on Xplane. We're on public beta 12.3.0 beta 6. Xplane has just been really coming along, and it's one of the best flight simulators out there in today's world. If you are a Microsoft flight simmer, you can follow along with this procedure as well. The basics are pretty much the same. And like I said, we're going to go over how to develop a flight plan, how to put that flight plan into the flight management computer. But before we do that, we're going to go over how to set up the settings in the Zibo, how to go from a cold and dark state to power up procedures, how to set up all the switches before engine start, and then, like I said, basically how to get the FMC fully programmed. If you don't program the FMC correctly, you will not be able to utilize the autopilot functions. A lot of people miss some steps, and then they don't understand why they can't use certain functions of the autopilot. So we're going to go through it step by step, everything you need to do to get fully functional, and then we're going to talk about all the switches and dials on the main control panel, MCP for short, and how to use the autopilot. We'll do a flight from Minneapolis, St. Paul to San Francisco. And this is where we're at right now here in Minneapolis, St. Paul. It's a beautiful day to go fly. But before we go fly, we need to set up a flight plan. So let's set up a flight plan, and we're going to go to SimBrief to develop our flight plan. All right, be back here in a little bit. Cheers. All right, so here we are in SimBrief. This is totally unscripted, meaning I haven't sat down and pre-developed a flight plan. I just want to fly from Minneapolis, St. Paul to San Francisco, and we're going to develop a flight plan. So coming here to New, departing K Minneapolis, St. Paul, arriving K San Francisco, alternate, we'll go to KLAX. If we can't get to San Francisco, aircraft type will be the Boeing 737-800. Variant or A-frame we'll just leave on default. And we're looking at a scheduled block time, 4 hours, 20 minutes. Departing runway 30 left in Minneapolis is what SimBrief is telling us it wants us on. So let's take a look at the METAR. Minneapolis, St. Paul is experiencing winds 210, 14, gusting to 26, 10 statutory miles, few clouds at 10,000 feet, few clouds at 15,000 feet, broken clouds 25,000 feet, temperature 16, dew point 2, barometric pressure 29.53. So winds 210 at 14. Let's take a look here at our runways. So real live ATIS departures are 3 left, 30 right, and runway 17. What did it give me? 30 left. Oh, that's fine. So we'll leave it at 30 left for a departure out of Minneapolis. Arriving in San Francisco, we can look at the current METAR. That's not going to be the same by the time we get there. But right now, San Francisco is experiencing winds 130 at 8 knots, 10 statutory miles, absolutely clear, temperature 19, dew point 11, barometric pressure is 30.10. So it looks like we're going into a really good day. The TAF showing skies clear all through the day. Variable winds 290, 390. So more than likely, just staying on 28 right is going to be just fine upon our arrival. So we'll go ahead and close that window. SimBrief has just given us a selected route. Here's all your suggested routes that you can go through. Here's real world, all real world. If you scroll down here, just some of the SimBrief flight plans. You can select any of these that you want. And this is just what SimBrief just threw in for us real quick. And if you look at the flight map, this route right here is displayed on the map. So here's something else I like to do. I like to fly real world, real life situations. So I like to come in here in the flight aware. We're going to type in K Minneapolis St. Paul, flying to San Francisco, search. And I have a flight already here en route from Minneapolis St. Paul to San Francisco. This is Delta Airlines 2074. Click on that. They departed gate F3, Frank 3, arriving San Francisco gate C7, Charlie 7. They're already en route. And I like to come down here to this flight data information and see what they filed in real life. So they planned 30,000. They're currently at 34,000. And here is their flight plan that they filed in real life. So let's just copy this real quick. Copy that. Come back here into SimBrief. If I come here to what SimBrief gave me and just put my cursor here at the very end, give it a couple spaces, and then paste in what FlightAware is doing. So this route right here is what SimBrief initially gave us. It's the SHEP-1 departure. So the standard instrument departure is the SHEP-1, RIX in transition, going to the TU waypoint, to the Lucky waypoint, to the CYS VOR, and then joining the airway J148 to the OAL VOR, to waypoint Inyo, and then on the stars, standard arrival, Diamond 5. That's what SimBrief gave us, but this is what Real World gave us. Same instrument departure, SHEP-1, RIX in transition to the TU waypoint, Lucky waypoint, CYS VOR, but now they've added in the Culver waypoint to the MTU VOR, and then joined the J148 to the OAL. Everything else is the same. They just added this Culver waypoint and the MTU VOR. So maybe, why did they do that? So let's take a look here. What I like to do is come up here, select this little navigation charts weather layers, and I'm going to first look at the weather radar. So all the weather is up here at the north. There's no weather en route in between us. And then I like to look at the segments. Segment November 6th. Click on that, and what we have here is severe turbulence coming from Albuquerque center. So severe turbulence here in this area. So I have a feeling what they did here in real life is they're avoiding that turbulence. So what we're going to do is come back here to the selected route. This right here is what SimBrief decided for us automatically. We're just going to delete that. And then this route that we have here now is what we copied from FlightAware, this flight plan right here. And we're going to analyze that route, and you can see what they've done here is there's the CYS Cheyenne VOR, and they've come here to the Culver waypoint, which was new, going to the Maiton VOR. So what they did is original flight plan would have taken us just to the northern edge of this severe turbulence. They're bypassing that. So, real life, they're bypassing this segment November 6th of severe turbulence. So, that's going to be our flight plan. We're going to follow the real life and we're going to generate that. All right, I had everything on auto, so it wants me at 36,000 feet, cost index of 14. Here's our block fuel we're going to need for this flight, 27,532 pounds. Here's the flight plan. Now come down here to the very, very bottom for you new simmers. So like I said, we're going to be doing this flight in the Zibo 737-800. Here's flight plan downloads. You need to download this flight plan so that Zibo can read this flight plan correctly. I highly recommend that you come to this SimBrief downloader and download it. So what the SimBrief downloader does is it'll automatically put when you hit, hold on real quick, when you come up here and you hit generate the flight, SimBrief downloader will automatically download the flight plan and in the correct format that the Zibo 737 needs. And what I mean by that, if I come here and just show details, so what you need to download for the Zibo is come all the way down here to the bottom and you're going to see Zibo mod Boeing 737. It needs it to be in this format right here, this B738X.xml. You would download that and then you need to put it into the correct folder for the Zibo to look at your flight plan. So where that goes, it goes into your XPlane12 directory. Then you'd go to the output folder and then go to the FMS plans. And that's where you would put this downloaded file so that Zibo can read the flight plan. Okay, so that's how we built a flight plan. Now it's time to load up Xplane again and jump into the simulator. And next step is we're going to look at the electronic flight bag and how to set up the settings for the Zibo. Get her ready for power up. All right, be back here in just a sec. All right, so here we are inside the Zibo Boeing 737-800. First thing we need to do is take a look at the electronic flight bag. What's important in here is setting up some basic settings. So on the electronic flight bag, we're at the main menu, page 1 of 2. We're going to come here to the second page. This little tab here, configure and customize, need to click. And here you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different tabs. I recommend you go through each and every one of these and set up the Zibo of how you want it. So for instance, we click display invariants. And under this tab, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different options to click and set up. So we go to exterior, for example. You can set up the winglets to have none, blended, or split. It's all personal preference of how you want it. Air stairs, yes or no. So that would mean if we don't have a gate and we open up the door, then air stairs would be brought to you. Communication satellites, you can have it none, just to the front, to the rear, or to the both. Like I said, all of these are personal preferences, so however you want to set it up. Go through each and every one of these and set them up how you want it. However, I'm going to go over this hardware tab. This is a very important one to set up. So depending on whether you have rudder pedals or don't have rudder pedals, these toe brake axis is very important to set up. I do not have rudder pedals, so I am running the Thrustmaster TCA joystick. So when I apply brakes, I'm just pushing a trigger on my joystick. So my options are to have different toe brake axis or symmetric toe brake axis. Since I don't have rudder pedals and I'm only pushing a trigger, giving one command to the brakes, I need my right and left brake to be on symmetric. If I had rudder pedals, then I would make this different. The other important thing is nose wheel axis. Again, I don't have rudder pedals. I'm only twisting the joystick to be able to turn the Zibo, basically using this tiller right here in real life. But we're simulating that by using that. You can see how the rudder pedals are turning for me when I'm twisting the joystick. Since I don't have anything really going to the tiller here, it's important if you don't have rudder pedals that nose wheel axis is set to yaw. If you don't have it on yaw, if you put it on roll, she will not turn. Throttle noise lock, I recommend at least putting it at least one. That gives you a little bit of deadband there for throttle noise lock. And then everything else in here, we're on page 1 of 2. It's just kind of personal preferences of how you want it. Let's back out here and come to realism. So I like to fly in as most realistic simulation as possible. So the align time here, you have options for real, long, or short. This align time is how long it's going to take for the IRS to align. Real time, it's going to take the IRS about 6-7 minutes to properly align. If you go to long, I don't know, it's like about 3 to 4 minutes. If you're on short, it's almost instantaneous. That's the same for align time, refuel time, pax boarding time, cargo load time, catering load time. Again, personal preference of how you want it. I like to put them all on real. Pause at top of descent. You have the option to turning that off or on. Yoke movement, I recommend just putting that on off. Parking brake set, I recommend putting that on simply. We're on page 1 of 2. We're going to come here and go to page 2. Autopilot yoke neutral tolerance, real or simply. I recommend you put this on simply. And here's the reason why. When you're engaging autopilot, if you're on real, this is your primary flight display. And once we have power going to everything and we're in flight and taking off, the primary flight display is going to have a vertical line and a horizontal line. And the flight management computer is deciding what heading you're on and what pitch angle the takeoff should be. Your job as a pilot is to put the circle right in the middle of those crosshairs. If you're on real and you're not anywhere near the crosshairs that you have on your primary flight display, and you try to activate autopilot with Command A, Command A will not engage because you're not exactly in the crosshairs on your primary flight display. If you're on simply, it gives you a little greater variance how far away you are from being able to activate Command A autopilot. As a new simmer and someone that's just really learning how to fly, so I recommend you put this in simply. Again, go through each and every one of these settings, set it up to personally how you want it, and then come back here to the home, main menu, page 1 of 2, and then come into the save and load configuration, and then do a quick save of all configurations. That way, the next time you load the Zibo, all your personal preferences are already saved and ready to go. All right, that's a basic uh, tutorial of how to set up and configure and customize the Zibo. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to start powering up the Zibo from a cold and dark state. And I'm going to show you how to set up all the switches to get us all set up, ready for engine start. Okay, be back in a second, and we'll go through those procedures. Okay, we're in the Boeing 737-800X Zibo, Boeing 737-800X. We're in a complete cold and dark state. We're parked here at Minneapolis, St. Paul, gate F3, Frank 3. We're going to do a complete startup from a cold and dark state and get us prepared for pushback and engine start. Now, we're going to need some charts as well for the startup procedures. Let me close this real quick. So we're going to come here back to the SimBrief flight plan. Remember, we are Delta 2074, departing Minneapolis, St. Paul, arriving San Francisco, alternate Los Angeles. Initial altitude 34,000 feet, cost index 15. We're going to be loading 30,675 pounds of fuel. And this is our flight plan down here. SHEP 1 standard instrument departure, SHEP 1 Roxanne transition. And we're going to go direct to TU waypoint, direct to Lucky waypoint, direct to CYS, which I believe is Cheyenne VOR, direct to Culver waypoint, direct to MTU VOR, join the J148 radial to the OAL VOR, then direct to Inyo waypoint into San Francisco on the standard arrival chart Diamond 5. Now I'm going to take this information, I'm going to copy it, and I'm just going to put that on my text editor so I can bring that information up later as we're programming the FMC. Like I said, we're going to need charts. There's a couple ways that you can do this. I have a Navigraph subscription. I pay, I don't know, $200 every 2 years for it. That's a little expensive for certain people, but that's what I'm using today is Navigraph charts. I will show you a different way that you can get charts as well. So using Navigraph charts, I'm just going to click this link here for important charts. This brings up the SimBrief flight plan here in Minneapolis, St. Paul. We're departing off runway 30, departure SHEP 1, transition to Roxanne. And down here at the bottom, I have my Minneapolis, St. Paul airport chart. And then this is my standard instrument departure SHEP 1. So if you don't have Navigraph, there's another way that you can get charts. So we'll just come up here to Google, type in K Minneapolis St. Paul, and then AirNav. Hit enter. AirNav, Minneapolis St. Paul. We'll click on this link, scroll all the way to the bottom. And here's your charts. You have standard terminal arrivals, instrument approach procedures, departure procedures, and that's what you'll need for K Minneapolis St. Paul. We're on the SHEP 1, which is right here. And there's 2 pages for download. So that you can get your charts here if you need to. And then you do the same thing for San Francisco. I think you can just come here to airports. Type in KSFO for San Francisco. Enter. Here we are, San Francisco. Scroll to the bottom. What we're on arrival Diamond 5. So this is your instrument approach procedures. Here's your star standard arrivals. Here's Diamond 5 RNAV, 2 pages you can download. So that's where you can get charts. There's other places you can get charts. That's just one example. That's if you don't have Navigraph. But for today's example, we're using Navigraph. So we're departing runway again, 30 SHEP 1 Roxanne transition, and this is the standard instrument departure for the SHEP 1 departure. Come down here and read initial climb from runways 30 left, 30 right for assigned headings from 220 clockwise to 360. We're going to cross at a distance of 7 nautical mile arc from the Minneapolis St. Paul VOR and need to be at or above 3,500 feet. So if we scroll up here, we're going to be taking off in this direction, heading for 30 left is 301 degrees. So we'll be departing for the runway here, 301 degrees. Here's that 7 nautical mile arc from Minneapolis St. Paul VOR. And again, it's showing you here for runways 30 left and right for assigned headings from 220 clockwise to 360 cross at 7 DME from Minneapolis St. Paul at 3,500 feet or above. See this blue line? It's below where it says 3,500. If this blue line was above the 3,500 feet, that would mean I would cross the 7 DME mark at or below 3,500. Because this blue line is below 3,500, that's telling me I need to be at or above 3,500 feet at the 7 DME mark from the Minneapolis VOR. So we're going to kind of need to know this information on the startups, but we also need to look at our arrivals into San Francisco. We're on the Diamond 5 star standard arrival chart, transition Inyo waypoint, and there's 25 approaches available. So let's select the approach that we're going to be on. If you see, we're coming in here and it ends at Archie. And we're going to do an ILS 28 right approach from the Archie intersection. That highlights the chart. I'm going to add it. And then I get my ILS approach plate charts right down here. So you have a ILS or localizer for runway 28. You have another one if you're on a Cat 2 or 3 approach, and then you have another one if you're on a Cat 1. We're just going to do the standard. Brief overview how to read an ILS approach chart. This tells me that we're in San Francisco. It's an ILS or localizer to runway 28 right. If you're flying on VATSIM or any other network, real world, This is what you would tune in for your ATIS information, get your weather information. You'll be coming in on through NorCal approach, and you'll dial your radio frequency to 134.5. San Francisco Towers on 120.5. Ground, you're going to be on 121.8. Your localizer frequency is 111.7. And if you notice this localizer, you have these 4-letter identification IGWQ. Every ILS frequency has an identifier. You'll see that in the flight management computer. You'll also see it on your primary flight display as you're coming in. You'll see that identifier. It just kind of lets you know that you have dialed in to the correct localizer frequency. Another thing we need to know is the final approach course. For runway 28 right, we need to be on an approach course of 284 degrees. This next box tells me we need to be at minimum altitude of 1,800 feet at Axmo waypoint. If you come down here, here's the Axmo waypoint. And then you have another chart here that just kind of shows you another visual representation that we're going to be at 1,800 feet, cross Axmo at that, and then we're going to intercept the glide slope. We also need to be at Seppen waypoint at 3,000 feet. So here's Seppen, and we need to be at 3,000 feet here at this waypoint. Again, down here, it shows you for ILS DME, we're going to be on a final approach course of 284 degrees. Our ILS frequency of 111.7, and here's that identifier, IGWQ. Now remember, we're coming in here from Archie. This is telling me I should be on a heading of 260, minimum altitude of 6,000 feet. Come to Xyled, 260 degrees, minimum altitude 5,000. Then we're going to cross Gur, a waypoint, heading of 260, minimum altitude of 4,000 feet. Then we're going to come to Dumba. At that intersection, we're going to turn to a heading of 284, minimum altitude 3,000 feet, and we're going to stay at that altitude until we cross Seppen, and then we're going to descend to 1,800 feet, intercept the glide slope right here at Axmo waypoint. Okay. We're going to need all this information as we start powering up the Zibo, and I'll show you where and how. All right, so we're back here in the Zibo. We need power. So we're going to come here to the electronic flight bag. Ground services tab, we're going to select that. We're going to tell the ground crew, bring the ground power unit over, connect it to the airplane, and give us some electricity. So I click that, and then we're going to come up here to our overhead panel. It's a little dark because it's actually overcast skies here in Minneapolis, and it's starting to get in the evening time, but we'll get some lights going here in a minute. You'll see this little light here above where it says ground power. That's letting me know ground power is available. Right up here is our switch, our battery switch. It's a little toggle spring-loaded switch. You're just gonna click that down. That turns on the batteries. Ground power switch, we're gonna click this toggle switch down and give us ground power. Okay, we have power to the aircraft, and we are coming off ground power. Eventually, we're going to get the aircraft going on the auxiliary power unit. Next, we're going to come to our emergency lights. We need to arm this. If we deploy the doors and slides come out, the emergency lights will come on automatically, so we need to arm that. This over here is your air conditioning panel. You have your left circulation fan, right circulation fan. We're going to put those both in auto. They're already there. This is your air conditioning pack for the left side, air conditioning pack for the right side. Currently it is in off. We need to put it in auto. So one click down, that's for the left and right side. This is your isolation valve. Currently it is in the open position. We need to one click up to auto. These down here are your bleed switches for your left engine, APU, right engine. We don't have any engines going, so the left engine, right engine bleed comes to off. APU we're going to be starting. It's currently in the off position. We're going to switch that down so that we have APU bleed once we start it. Now we're going to come down here to this switch. It's called the position strobe and steady. It's in the middle position of off. This is a 2-position switch. If we come all the way down, which is what we're going to put it into, where it says steady, that turns on my green and red navigation lights on the wing. Just before we get to the runway, we will then move this switch all the way up, and it's going to be strobe and steady. So we'll have the green and red lights over the wing and then the strobes from the wing. But for right now, we're just going to put this in steady. We just want green and red lights on the wing. Logo light. This is the light for the tail wing. We'll turn that on. Next switch, engine start. We have ignition left, ignition right, and for both. It's currently in ignition right. We're going to put that in center position to both. This is our trim air. We're going to turn that on, get some air circulation throughout the cabin. This is our window heat. Side window, forward window on the left side, forward window, side window on the right side. We're going to turn all those on, keep the windows from fogging or getting any ice. Up here, these 2 positions are your iris. This is what tells the airplane where it's at and feeds the GPS. We need to get this aligned. Currently we're in off. We have a left side and a right side. So the left side, we're going to put this into navigation. Tells me it's on DC power, and then here in a minute it's going to tell me it's in the align process. There we go. Same thing for the right. Put it in nav. It's on DC power. And there she goes. She's aligning. Not aligned, but aligning. We zoom in here and come up here, this little outer dial, if we put it on heading in STS, rotate that to that position. This tells you your IRS display has 7 minutes for it to totally align. Clear that warning. Okay, so we started the alignment process. We have some of the switches already dialed in. We're going to come down here to the zoom in. Main panel brightness. Turn that all the way up. Get us some brightness here on our panel. Same thing on the first officer side. Okay. We're going to come back here to the EFB. We're going to press home to the main menu. We need to come to fuel weight and balance, and then come to airside services. We're in airside services, page 1 of 2. We need to go to page 2. So click on this arrow to page 2. Down here it says load OFP. That's the official flight plan. So remember, we downloaded a flight plan from SimBrief for the Zibo 737. I told you guys to put that into the XPlane output FMS folder, FMS plan folder. So by clicking on this, that's what we're loading. We're loading that flight plan. So we'll click that. Zibo reads from that flight plan that we're going to be loading 135 passengers. We're going to load 7,425 pounds of cargo. Our current zero fuel weight will be 122,944 pounds, and fuel we're going to be loading is 30,675 pounds. We're going to activate that. When you hit activate, you'll see the gate will automatically come and connect to the Zibo. We're on page 202. We're going to come back to this arrow and come back to page 1. Now, I've already got all the fuel on board this aircraft, so it's telling me we don't need to add any more fuel. We're already at 100%. We still need to load cargo, and we still need to load passengers. So we're going to come back up here to the main panel. What I need to do now is input my altitude. Today's flight, I think we're going to 34,000, so we're already in there. So we have 34,000 here on our altitude. Next, you need to come back up to the overhead panel again. This is your pressurization panel. Whatever altitude you're going to be flying at, you need to put this altitude setting the same as your flight altitude. So again, this is at 34,000. That is correct. Now we need to look at the charts.
Disconnected and starting refueling. Ground to flight deck, fuel is all loaded up and you are good to go.
Okay, it's letting me know all the fuel is loaded on the aircraft. I already knew that because we were already at 100%. We need to bring up charts. What we're looking at, this is the ILS chart for San Francisco. I need to know what the airport elevation is upon landing. Right here, airport elevation is 13 feet. I need to put that here in the landing altitude. We're currently at 50. If I go down, it puts me at 0. You never want to be below the landing altitude. You want to be one click above that. This is in increments of 50, so we're going to come up. 50 is the minimum setting we're going to use for airport elevation of 13 feet. Pressurization panel is set. Come back up here to our main panel, clear any warnings that we may have. And now we're going to come down here to our center pedestal. Panel brightness, we're going to turn that on. We'll zoom in here a little bit. This is our transponder panel. We're not flying on that zoom, so we're just going to leave this flying with a transponder code of 2000. This is the radio panel for the captain. This is the radio panel for the first officer. Again, we're not flying on bat sound, so we're just going to fly on Unicom of 122.8. We're dialed down that for the captain and the first officer side. The next panel down is your navigation panel. We're going to look at the charts again. For the charts, ILS frequency for runway 28, 111.7, approach course 284. We need to dial in the ILS frequency of 111.7. This is your navigational panel for the captain's side. We already have it programmed in 111.70. If that wasn't there, if it was saying 115.3, you would change the frequency by the outer dial, inner dial, and put it on 111.7 and transfer it over. We're already set to that for the captain's side, first officer side. You do want to get both of these programmed with the correct ILS frequency. So 111.70, we're dialed in, both sides, we're all good to go. That's pretty much all you're going to do right now for the lower center pedestal. We're going to come back up here to the main page. This is our MCP. Main control panel. This is our primary flight displays. We're going to zoom in here a little bit. What we need to do is enter in our barometric pressure settings. Again, we're going to bring up charts. Right here is Minneapolis, St. Paul. This right here showing me my current winds. I have an 8 knot crosswind. I have a 2 knot tailwind, but if I click on this, I'll get the METAR. Here's Minneapolis, St. Paul, METAR. Winds 200 at 9, gusting to 16 knots, 10 statutory miles. We've got few clouds at 3,700 feet, scattered clouds 7,000 feet, overcast layer at 8,000 feet. Temperature is 11, dew point 7. Barometric pressure is 29.53. I need to enter in that barometric pressure right there, 29.53. This is saying 1013 HPA. Here's your barometric switch. You can be in HPA or inches. HPA is for when you're flying over in Europe or some of the other countries, they use HPA. Here in the US, we go in inches. So your outer dial, you'll just switch that over to inches. And notice we're now here in inches. Current reading is 29.92, and we need that to be at 29.53. So that outer dial, we'll dial that to 29.53. Okay, we need to look at charts again. And we're going to look at the ILS chart. Zoom in here a little bit. Next thing we need to look at is the ILS decision height. These are your minimums. You can either dial in this number at 213 feet, that's coming off barometric pressure, or you can use the radio. Dial in 200 feet. I always find the radio to be more accurate, so our minimums are going to be 200 feet off the radio, and we need to put that into the Boeing. This right here is your minimum dial. Again, your outer dial, you can put it on radio or barometric pressure. We're going to keep it on radio, and then the inner dial, we're going to dial up to 200 feet. Here's my radio. Once I start moving it, that will come up, and we need to go to 200. All right, minimums is set. Radio 200 feet above ground level. Now I have this FMC warning because it's telling me I need to enter in our IRS position. The IRS is aligning, but it needs to know where we're at so it can finalize the finalize the alignment. But we're going to clear this FMC warning for the captain and first officer side. We're going to continue setting up our switches. This is your VOR, ADF. I'm going to go ahead and just put those to off for right now. VOR2, ADF2, I'm going to put those to off. Primary flight display for my map, I'm currently at a total of 10 range. 5 is in the middle, but I like to be at the most zoomed in range I can be during takeoff. So always put that on 5. Now we're going to come over here to the first officer side. Again, VOR1, turn that to off. VOR2, turn that to off. This panel starts off defaulting 5, or basically 10. I like to set this to 40. Reason I set this to 40 is when I'm flying, I can look at this screen, which I'll have maxed out to probably 180 nautical mile range. I'll keep this display on 40 that I can turn over and look. It's good for when I'm flying on VATSIM. I can see other traffic easier. And then for weather radar, I can see radar displays from any potential turbulence or extreme weather that we're going to be flying through, and I'll want to see that on this display, vice this one when this is zoomed out to 180. Okay, let's come again over here and look at the EFB. I did this for a reason. I didn't set it so you could see this. Notice passengers are not boarding. We have all the fuel, we have all the cargo. Packs still aren't boarding. It'll tell you, hint, for packs boarding, set the chime switch to on. So that's up here, the overhead panel. Here's your seatbelt. Here's your chime switch. Passengers will not load. We're currently on off on the chimes. One switch down puts us in auto. The next switch down puts us in on. Come back to the EFB. The hint went away, and you should start seeing passengers
Start port. Here we go. All right, now we're getting passengers on board. We're going to wait for this to get to 100%. While that's doing that, let's continue setting up the Zibo. So we've partially got the MCP set up. We've partially got the overhead panel set up. And now we're going to start programming the FMC. It's telling me on the FMC that we need to enter an iris position, which we're getting ready to do, but we're going to clear that out. First, we're going to do is click on the FMC on the captain and first officer side. Next, I'm going to look that I have the current ARAC cycle. The current ARAC cycle is October 2nd to October 29th of 2025, so I am current. If you do not have the current ARAC cycle, which how I get this is through the Navigraph subscription. There are other ways that you can get it, but again, that's a more advanced tutorial. We're not going to get into that. If you need to know how to update your active AREC cycle, you can start Googling that. Start watching other YouTube videos, whatever you need to do. But we're not going to get into that in this video. We're just going to assume that you do have the current AREC cycle. What we need to do is position initialize so that the iris knows where we're at so we can finish aligning. So we're going to click this RS key K for the position initialize. Here it's setting me to set the IRS position. There's two places you can grab this information and put this information in. Up here at the top is our last known position, North 44.53, West 93.12. We could copy this by pressing this RS key K. They'll put it here in Q, and then we could drop it here into the set IRS position. This one isn't very accurate. We're on page 1 of 3 on the position initialization page. We're going to go to page 2 by clicking right here on next page. Page 2 of 3, we have a GPS coordinates, left and right. We have redundancy. You can see both of these are practically the same. They're just off by a little bit. It doesn't really matter which one you grab, either GPS right or GPS left. So we'll just go ahead and grab the GPS left by pressing this RS key, puts it in Q. Come back to the previous page. We're on page 2 of 3. Now I'm back on page 1 of 3, and we're going to drop this information that we put in Q here into the IRS position by pressing this RS key. Information's inputted. Now it's taking that information, and the IRS is going to continue to align. Next, we need to come into our route. Now, Zibo has a really good deal. You could just hit flight plan request, let it take for a little bit for it to load, and you'll get a message down here that you can load the flight plan, and you would just hit enter. That automatically enters everything into the flight management computer for you. Honestly, when I fly, I use that all the time. But I wanted this tutorial to be how you can program everything into the flight management computer manually. That way you know how to do it in case you're unable to do the automatic function. So we're in Route 1. We need to put in our origin of where we're taking off from. That's Minneapolis, St. Paul. So K, M, SP. There's our origin. Destination, we're going to San Francisco. K, S, F, O. There's our destination. Flight number, what do we say we're today? We are Delta Airlines 2074. Put that under flight number. Runway, we're taking off from, what did I say, 30 left. 30 left. Put that here on the runway. Notice that through 30 left up on the primary flight display for us. Okay. Now we need to put in our departure for Minneapolis, St. Paul. So we're going to come here to departure arrival. Click that. Here's Minneapolis, St. Paul at the top. Here's where I put in my departure. not arriving, so we're not going to use their arrival function. Down below that is San Francisco. There is no departure frequency because it knows we're not departing there, but there is an arrival procedure for San Francisco. We're going to concentrate on the top line for Minneapolis, St. Paul. It's where we're departing from, so we're going to hit this RSK function key for departure. Here on the right side is my runways. Remember, we're taking off runway 3 left. We're on page 1 of 3. 30 left isn't displayed. We're going to go to the next page. There she is. This is already selected, because remember on the first page I already selected 30 left for our departure. But it's selected, we're going to select it again by hitting the RSK. Standard instrument departures. We're on the Shep 1 departure. It's not listed. We're on page 1 of 2. Come to the next page. There it is, Shep 1. Hit this RSK. And then we're through transition Roxanne. There it is, Roxanne transition. Hit that RSK. It's now selected, and we're going to come back here to route. We're on page 1 of 2. We're going to go to the next page. Here we are, Shep 1, Roxanne transition, and FMC's program to go to the Roxanne waypoint. Now remember our flight plan. Let's bring up charts. Let's look at SimBrief. Here's our flight plan here. Shep 1, Roxanne transition, direct to TU waypoint, direct to Lucky waypoint, direct to CYS VOR, direct to Culver waypoint, direct to MTU VOR, join the J148 radial to OAL VOR. Then we're direct to Inyo waypoint, and then we're going to start the Diamond 5 standard arrival into San Francisco. So that is the flight plan that we need to put into the flight management computer. So Shep 1, Roxanne transition, then next direct to TU. We're going to put that information in. So T E Y O U TU. Put it here. Going direct. Next, we're going direct to Lucky. That's L L U K Y. There's Lucky. We're going direct. Put that here. Next, we're going direct to Cheyenne VOR. That's CYS. So CYS. Put that there. Direct to CYS. Next, we're direct to Culver waypoint. That one is COVVR. There we go. Put that in. We filled this page. Go to the next page. Next, we're going direct to MTU VOR. So MTU, MTU. Put that there. Oh! It doesn't know which one I should use. There's 2 VOR DMEs that's similar in name. So one VOR is 112.70, the other one's 112.20. Which one do I use?
Give us a ring if
9
you
times
need
out of 10, it's always going to be the one on the top, but we're just going to verify that. We're going to look at our charts. So here's MTU VOR right here. That's the Mighton VOR, frequency 112.7. That's the one I want to use. 112.7. So we're going to select the top one. So the MTU is now in. Next, we're going to join the radio J148. So J148. And this goes on this side. It's not a direct. We're joining a radio. When I put that in, it's telling me where am I going to exit the J148 radio. That's what this is telling me. We're exiting the J148, remember, at the OAL VOR. AOL. Put that there. Next, we're direct to Inyo waypoint. That's I-N-Y-O-E. I-N-Y-O-E. We're direct. Again, there's two waypoints that's similar, but these are the exact same ones, so it doesn't matter which one I select. Okay, the next thing we'd do, we would put in is we're ready for the standard arrival chart into San Francisco. I do not put this information in normally now, but we're going to go ahead and do it just so I can show you how you would do it. No, actually we're not. We're going to do this as we would do in pretty much in real life. This gets us to the Inyo waypoint. When we're 250 nautical miles from San Francisco, we're going to come in here and we're going to select departure arrival, come into San Francisco. We're going to hit the arrival chart. We would select, where are we coming in? Runway 28 right. It's ILS, so we would select ILS 2A right. The stars of Diamond 5. We would come back here to Diamond 5, and then we would enter in the transition of Inyo. We're not doing that now. Why? Well, en route to San Francisco, weather could change, winds could change. So even though right now they're calling for arrival in the runway 28 right, there's no reason to put this information in now because all that information could change. So 250 miles from San Francisco, we're going to come here to the departure arrival. We'll input all that information in. But for right now, there's no need to do that. So we're going to come back here to route page, and we're just going to go through this and make sure there's no disconnects. So go to the next page. We're Shep 1, Roxanne transition direct, direct TU, direct Lucky, direct Cheyenne VOR, direct Culver. Next page, we're direct MTU VOR, joining the J148 arrival, exiting the OAL VOR, then we're direct Inyo. All of that is correct. Now we're going to hit activate. Once you hit activate, a light comes on above execute. We need to execute that. Now it's time to put in the performance initialization. So we're going to click, or we're going to select that RSK key. Now we're on performance initialization page. So we're going to start on the right hand side first, work our way over to the left hand side. First, cruise altitude. We're at 34,000, so 340. Put that in. Cruise winds. How do I get that information? Back to charts. Sim brief. Right here, my average winds are 279 at 54 knots. We're putting that information in. So 279 at 54. 279 degrees, 54 knots. Put that in here on this RSK. Top of climb, outside temperature. How do I get that information? Back to charts. Come down here to briefing preview, show details. On this, we're going to scroll down. And we're going to look at where my top of descent is right here. So right after ship, should be at our top of descent. That's what the flight management computer thinks we should be at. So that's the Shep 1 departure. So actually, top of descent should be just before Roxanne waypoint. Anyway, we're going to keep scrolling down here until I get to right here. This is en route forecast winds, but also has my true outside temperature. Here's Roxanne, where we said probably we're going to be at top of descent. Outside temperature is negative 23 degrees. That's what I want. negative 23. Enter in that. So you have Fahrenheit, Celsius, everything in sim brief. Bring that up again. This is all in Celsius. It's not in Fahrenheit. This is in Celsius. So we're going to enter in this information for top of climb, outside air temperature, minus 23. So minus 23, and you need to put Celsius. If you don't and put that in, they'll put it in as Fahrenheit. We need Celsius. There we go, minus 23 degrees Celsius. That correlates to minus 9 degrees Fahrenheit. Transition altitude for the United States is 18,000 feet. We'll leave that as, that's our default. Cost index. Where do I get that information? Back to charts. Scroll back up here to the top. Cruise profile cost index is 15. So cost index, we're going to put 15. Reserves, 0 fuel weight, gross weight. You're going to hold off putting any of this information in until you're fully loaded with fuel, you're fully loaded with cargo, and you're fully loaded with passengers. We are there. We already have all of our fuel. We already have the cargo loaded. All the passengers are on board. So how do I get that information? We're going to come here to home, fuel weight and balance, payload. My 0 fuel weight is 122.9. My takeoff weight is 153.1. So you just need to know those that information. If you click on 0 fuel weight or gross weight, it puts in the information for you automatically. So there's our 153.6, 0 fuel weight 122.9. And that's why I say it's important to wait until you fully loaded your fuel, fully loaded your cargo, fully loaded your passengers, because you want to click this after everything's loaded. If you click it too soon, you'll have the wrong gross weight, wrong 0 fuel weight. That gets put in automatically for you. Reserves, I always just put in 2,000 pounds. It's abbreviated just by 2. That's 2,000 pounds. Performance initialization page is completely filled out. Notice now we get this execute button with the green light above it or yellow light above it telling us we need to execute this. That's put in. Now we need to go to N1 limit. On this, you can have basically toga takeoff, a TO. You could select a 24K D-rated takeoff, takeoff 1. A 22K D-rated takeoff, a takeoff 2. You can select any of these. Notice it goes to active. Or here it goes to active. And then it tells you it's selected climb 1 if you're on this TO2 takeoff. If you come back here to takeoff 1, I'm sorry, just toga takeoff. Default selects to this climb profile, but you could select this climb profile or this climb profile. Climb 1, climb 2 is just less thrust. I like to just keep it on the most thrust for takeoff. We're just going to keep things on takeoff, so actuated, selected, climb, and that gives me my highest N1 thrust ratings of 98.8. So I've just verified that I'm in the takeoff, actuated, selected, climb on the top one, all that's there. Now we're going to go into takeoff. Now we're going to enter our flap setting. You could take off flaps 1. If you have a really long runway, you're pretty light, not many passengers, not much cargo, you could do a flap 1. We do have a very long runway here in Minneapolis, St. Paul, but honestly, I like to take off at least flaps 5. If I have a very short runway and I'm really heavy, I'll actually even go higher than that. I'll do the next flap setting, possibly flaps 10. 9 times out of 10, flap setting is going to be at 5. Center gravity. Takeoff center gravity is 23.1. But you just select this RS key K, it fills it for you automatically. 23.1 center gravity is telling me my trim needs to be at 5.25. So let's go to the trim well. Default loaded up, the trim wheel is right at 5. We need to be at 5.25. So we're going to spin the wheel down. And that's roughly 5.25. So now we're trimmed properly. Now we're going to enter in our V speeds. V1 is 141 knots. Rotate 143. V2, 151. And that's it. FMC is fully programmed. On the co-pilot side, I like to go to progress. And I like to read this this display because it tells me at San Francisco, we're going to be landing with roughly 7,400 pounds of fuel. A little more than what I like, but it'll be okay. Definitely when I'm looking at this is I don't want this to be below 3,000 pounds. That's pushing it. So I look at this, if I was well below 3,000 pounds for landing, I would add more fuel to the aircraft. Technically, I probably could take 2,000 pounds of fuel off. This is a little high fuel for landing. It's going to give us more weight, but we're just going to go ahead and go with it. But normally I would probably take 2,000 pounds out. I like to land with about 5,000 pounds of fuel or less, not below 3. Okay, FMC's program. Now we're going to come here to VNAV. VNAV is vertical navigation. The flight management computer has already figured out that what we're going to do on speed restrictions on my standard instrument departure. Let's bring up the charts here real quick. On my standard instrument departure, again, remember flying runway heading to the 70 on the mile. I need to be above 3,500. We're going to make a left-hand turn to Huger Waypoint, McConnell, Erect, Shep, Roxanne. Along this chart, it's not giving me any speed restrictions, no altitude restrictions, so we're free climb. Now, even though I said we're free climb, FAA rules is you must be below 250 knots, below 10,000 feet. Notice the FMC has that program for you. So we can't get above 250 knots until we're above 10,000 feet. Then we're going to increase our climb speed to 268 nautical miles. And then through transition, speed transition altitude, which is around 24 to 27,000 feet, we're going to shift from airspeed of 268 knots to Mach 765 during the climb. Our climb N1, you can see our pressure is 90.7. So when we engage autopilot toga, you're going to be in N1 settings, you're going to be thrust settings in 90.7. That's just good to know. Okay. We need to get the APU going. Here on my fuel gauge, these two bottom dials here, this is telling me how much fuel I have in my wings. Left wing, I have 8,590, same amount of fuel on the right wing, and we do have fuel in the center tank, 13,510. So we're going to come up here to the overhead panel. This is my fuel panel, fuel pumps. These 4 switches are for the wing. You have 2 fuel pumps for the left, 2 fuel pumps for the right, 2 fuel pumps for the center. We have fuel in left wing, right wing, and center. We're going to turn all these fuel pumps on. If I had no fuel in the center pumps, we would just leave these off, but I do have fuel in the center, so we're going to turn them on as well. Next, we turn on yaw damper. It's time to go ahead and turn on our pitot heat. We're going to turn on our hydraulics. This is your hydraulic panel. Electrical, because we're coming off electrical power right now, that's why hydraulics are able to be actuated. And then it'll turn over to engine once we have the engine started. But that gives us our hydraulics going. Air conditioning panel's already set up, engine bleeds are off, APU bleed is on, we're ready to start the APU. Right here is your APU switch for off and on. Currently it's in off. We're going to push this toggle switch down once to on, and then again and hold it. Hold it for about 5 seconds. Until you see that low O pressure light come on, you can release the toggle switch and you're going to see the EGT start to rise. The APU is coming on. This is my electrical panel up here. I'm going to put this switch to APU gen, and then once the APU is up, I can make sure I have the correct AC volts and DC volts going. Okay, while the APU is coming on, we're going to go ahead and turn flight directors on for the captain's side, co-pilot side. Indicated airspeed. We're going to put this to 230. I'll go over this here in just a second. We're about ready for pushback. We're going to go ahead and turn our seatbelt signs on. Come back over here to the overhead panel. Now notice I now have a blue light over my APU. It's telling me APU is available. Still have ground power available, but I want to put my generators on the APU because the APU is running, so these switches to down. Both sides. Now I have AC voltage, AC amps, DC voltage coming off the APU. Ground power unit still setting me available. Even if I click up to off, this still stays on. So I'm going to tell the ground power people disconnect ground power unit. Back to the EFB. Home, ground service, ground power, disconnect. Come back over here to the over panel, notice that's now gone. Clear our warnings. Okay, before I start the engines, I want to go over this indicated airspeed right here, why I put this at 230. Clean speed for the Boeing, for the Zibo 737-800 anyway. When I'm on flaps 5, which is what we're going to be for takeoff, the actual clean speed is 235. I believe it's 235. And I'll show you what I'm talking about here right now. So we're going to go ahead and put flaps to 5. We've activated our hydraulics. We can now move our flaps. So let's get flap 1, flap 2, flap 5. Now we're going to watch this dial right here as she starts to get to flap 5. The slowest one is to get into flap 1 because we're doing flaps and slats. Then it goes a little bit faster. So now we're going into the flaps extension. Flaps 2. Flaps 5. On this indicated airspeed indicator, if I increase my speed, when you're above what's clean, I try to fly at 238 knots. I get this 8 flashing symbol. That means I'm going to be too fast for this flap setting. I'll bring it back down. 236 is actually the clean setting for the Zibo 737-800 at flap setting 5. Let's go to flap 10 real quick. So we're here at flap 5. Let's go to flap 10. 236 is too fast for flap 10. Let's bring our speed down. .211 knots is as fast as you can go if you're at flaps 10 setting. I always do a 5-knot difference than that, so I would be 206 or 205. That's what I would set if I was in flaps 10. We're not going to be taking off on flaps 10, we're going to be on flaps 5. Let's get back to flaps 5. Again, I had 230. And you'll see at 236 it's clean. Anything above that, we're too fast. 236 is clean. I like to give a 5-knot variance. So that actually would be 231. I just round off 230. That's why I put in 230 here on takeoff. Okay. All switches are set up and ready to go. We are ready for pushback and engine start. We're going to get that here in just a minute, and then we're going to start talking about the MCP, main control panel, primary flight displays, what each of these buttons mean, and how to actually operate the auto control panel. Okay, once we get all that set up, once we're ready for pushback, we'll be ready to go here in just a minute, and we'll connect again. All right, see you here in a little bit. Okay, we set all our dials and switches. We're ready for pushback, but before we push back and start engine start, I want to go over the main control panel, MCP. Let's just talk about these switches right here, what they're used for, how we're going to use them during takeoff, flying, and descent. First, we'll talk about the auto throttle alarm switch. When the auto throttle is engaged, the autopilot has command of the throttles and will govern the airspeed according to the value indicated by the IAS Mach display, which is this display right here. That's if you're in speed mode. You have control of the speed. If you're in N1, the FMC has control of the speed and the throttles. If you're curious what N1 percentage would be, if we're in VNAV mode, vertical navigation mode, what that does is put the autopilot automatically in N1. N1 currently is set to 90.6 for our climb 1, so that's 90.6% of our thrust. So if you're in VNAV mode, you automatically go to N1. It's controlled by the FMC, 90.6 thrust. The FMC will try to maintain that 90.6 thrust and then determine the vertical speed that it can maintain while holding that thrust setting. I personally do not like to take off or descend in vertical nav, especially using the Zibo or the level up 737. It's not that it doesn't work, it just doesn't work very well. VNAV mode, trying to maintain the thrust setting of 90.6, it's adjusting the vertical speed up and down a lot. It has a hard time of just saying, well, I want to come to this vertical speed, and I hold that thrust setting. It hunts. You'll increase up, decrease down vertical speed, constant. It's just trying to maintain that thrust setting. I just don't like it. So on takeoff, I actually use vertical speed. So I'll engage vertical speed. I like to climb at about 2,400 to 2,600 feet per minute climb. And then when I'm doing that, the speed function here will be activated for me, and I'm in control of the speed. So as I'm climbing, I will control the speed. I will not fly any faster than 230 knots until I'm clean with my flaps. So I get all my flaps back up to clean, zero, all up, landing gear up. Once I get to that clean state, I'll then increase my speed to 250 knots, below 10,000 feet. Then if you look at the flight management computer, 250 knots. When we're above 10,000 feet, we're going to climb to 268 knots. And then through transition speed altitude, 24 to 27,000 feet, transition to Mach speed, we're going to climb at Mach 765, or round out Mach 77. So just to reiterate, if you're in vertical speed climb, you're in control of the vertical speed, you control the pitch of the aircraft, you also control the speed of the aircraft. You're in charge of all that. If you're in VNAV mode, you're immediately into N1. It's the thrust setting you have set to the flight management computer. The computer itself will try to figure out a correct vertical speed that it can maintain while holding N1. I don't like using VNAV for ascend or descend because Zibo hunts. She'll constantly climb up and down on the vertical speed, trying to maintain N1. I just don't like it. So I will do vertical speed climb. I control the vertical speed. I control the speed. If I'm at 268 air knots or Mach 77 and I'm pitched at 2,400 feet per minute and I start losing airspeed, well, I just bring the pitch of the nose down. I control it myself. So that's how I do it. LNAV. The autopilot will follow the lateral components of your flight plan. So what it's doing is in your route, or legs, it's following the flight plan. So when we take off, we're in a heading of 301. Notice this says vector. We're going to stay on that heading until we do something, until we go direct to Hoover. Remember the standard instrument departure page says we're going to fly a runway heading of 301, 70 immediate arc of Minneapolis-St. Paul VOR. Once we're there, we can make a left-hand turn to Hoover View waypoint. And what we're going to do is once we cross those settings, we're going to select Hoover, plug it in here. That's how we go direct to Hoover. Select it, plug it in here, and then we'll go direct. So LNAV, that's what LNAV does. It follows what you have programmed in the flight management computer. It's kind of like the GPS in your car. It goes from point A, point B, point C, point D, wherever you have programmed in the FMC. So we've discussed auto throttle, N1, what it does, speed, what it does, VNAV, LNAV. Let's talk about level change. So level change, what it does is this automatic kind of puts you back into vertical speed mode. This bypasses the N1 thrust settings. It's set in the FMC. You're back in control, indicated airspeed. I'll use this. Let's say we're already at 34,000 feet. I want to do a step climb to 360. So I would change my altitude now to 360. I could just come in here and click vertical speed, dial in my new vertical speed to climb up to 360, or I could just come over here and push level change. Level change, what it'll do is it'll automatically decide, well, whatever speed that I'm currently at, what vertical speed can I climb to get to the new altitude of 360. Heading select, of course, whatever we have displayed here on our heading display, if I hit heading select, that's the heading we're going to fly. The outer dial, if you notice, we have 10, let's see, what is it, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. This is your bank angle. If you're at 10, you would only have a 10-degree bank angle. It's a little too slow to make turns. I like to either have it at 15 or 20. I'll just put it here in the center at 20. If you're at 25 or 30, your bank angle's way too high. It'd be way too uncomfortable for your passengers. So either 20 or 15, what you should have, the outer dial set, that's your bank angle. And of course your inner dial changes your head. Next you have VOR localizer. So what you have this tuned in to your navigation panel, which is down here in your center skull, center display console. Here's your navigation panel. Right now I do have the Minneapolis St. Paul VOR dialed in at 115.3. If I wanted to fly a Pacific radio off of that VOR, I could dial that in and I could go VOR localizer and it would fly that radio on the VOR. You also use this for your ILS approach. That would strictly be for the radio course that you want to be on. It would not capture the glide slope. That's when you would use the approach. The approach button does both. It does radio and glide slope. So as you're coming in for your landing, you need to be a narrow approach course to intercept the localizer, and you also need to be below the glide slope. Then you would activate the approach, fly into it, let it engage. If you have too steep of an angle to approach to the glide slope or to the localizer, you'll fly right through it. It won't engage. You need to have a shallow approach. You need to be below the glide slope. If you're above the glide slope, try to hit the approach, you're just going to fly right through it. It will not engage. You have to be below. We'll talk about that as we're approaching our way into San Francisco, how it works. Altitude hold, pretty self-explanatory. We're in ascent or descend. And wherever altitude the current aircraft is at, we can just come here and press altitude hold. Wherever altitude we're at, the aircraft will maintain that altitude. Vertical speed, we kind of already talked about that. You'll get a display here on your vertical speed. You can increase or decrease the vertical speed, and that's what I use on my takeoffs and landings. I like to be in control of my vertical speed, especially on takeoffs. And when we start our descent, I'll show you also why I like to use the vertical speed over the VNAV. Autopilot functions. This is Command A, Command B. Command A and Command B is how you turn on your autopilot. You have dual functions, redundancy. So they both do the same thing. You just don't want to turn them both on unless you're going to do an auto line. We'll talk about that later. But to turn on the autopilot, you're just going to turn on Command A. Command B is available as redundancy. You could use it if you wanted to, but not both at the same time. There's no need. CWS. Give me a second here. That's control wheel settings. I hardly ever use this, although it's a pretty cool function. So you could turn on CWS. This is reading the, let's see, how do I put this? The pressure readings on your yoke. So if you're in a turn, you're in a climb, you're pressing up on your joystick for a climb, you're also banking for a turn, and you have CWS engaged. Once you release that pressure, basically put everything to neutral, CWS will maintain that pitch control in that roll that you're in. I never use it. I think it's a pretty cool function. Like I said, I never use it. Again, this is all just basic stuff. There's a lot of people out there that say, well, this does this does that. That's fine. This is just designed to give you a general overview of what all these functions and switches do. And we're ready to push back and start. We'll go in more depth and detail as I'm taxiing out to the runway of what we're going to do to get into the air. All right, about ready for pushback. Be back here in just a minute.
Okay, it's time for pushback. Now we're going to look at our charts here again real quick before we do a pushback. Again, standard instrument departure. We're departing runway 30 left. 30 left is here. We're right here. We're going to push back. We're going to go on taxiway Charlie, taxiway Alpha, Alpha 1. Get on runway 30 left. And then departure, we're on heading of 301. On departure from the Minneapolis St. Paul, we're looking at the 7 DME arc. Once we cross that 7 DM mark, we should be above 3,500 feet. We're going to make a left-hand turn to Huger intersection. So I'm going to show you a way that we can get the 7 DME arc on our FMS. Minneapolis St. Paul VOR frequency is 115.3. Come down here to our center console. I've already dialed into the navigation Minneapolis VOR 115.30. I've already turned on the VOR. And you can see right here, VOR on, we have the Minneapolis St. Paul. Currently right now, DME 1.3 nautical miles away. And here's a little trick you can use. Come here to fix, enter in the VOR, Minneapolis St. Paul. I could fly a radio and I could fly a distance, but I just am curious about giving me a distance display up here on my primary flight display. Remember, it's a 7 DME, so I don't want radio, I want distance. We're going to go with /7. That gives me a 7 DME arc around the Minneapolis St. Paul VOR. And there it is right there at the display. So as I'm taking out, I have now visual display. Once I cross this green arc, I'm at the 7 DME for Minneapolis St. Paul, and I need to be above 3,500 feet. Then once we cross that, we're going to make that left-hand turn to Huger intersection. Okay, let's go ahead and call the tug. I have better pushback installed on this as a plug-in, so we're going to call the push.
Ground to cockpit, tow is driving up.
Alright, while they're coming up, we're going to go ahead and turn on our transponder, put this all the way to TNA. Seatbelt signs are on.
Okay, all doors and hatches are closed, ready to connect.
Alright, when I get that command, I'm going to go ahead and turn my beacon switches to on. Lets everyone around me know that we're about to start, and start engines. Okay, the tug's got us in the air. We're ready for push.
Ground to cockpit. Please show me where you want to go.
So we're going to come straight back to about here. Have them turn us. There's our pushback.
Tow connected and bypass pin inserted. Release parking brake.
telling us to release parking brake for pushback. Go ahead and start the timer. Timer started. Releasing parking brakes for pushback.
Starting pushback, and you may start engines.
Okay, we're ready for engine start. We're going to come up here to the center panel. Air conditioning panel, we need to turn the right pack, left pack off. That gives me the most air to start the engines. This is engine 2. We're going to turn it to ground, start the engines. We're going to monitor N2 right here. When this gets to 25, we're going to introduce fuel. There we go, N2's at 25, introduce fuel. Fuel's turned on. Now we're monitoring N2, EGT, engine exhaust temperature, and we're monitoring N1. Okay, good start, nothing got away from us. Come up to the center panel. Notice the spring-loaded switch turn to the off position. Once we have a good start, we're going to turn this to continuous.
Operation complete.
Engine 1.
Go ahead and set the parking brake.
Alright, parking brake set.
Disconnecting tow.
Turn it to
Stand by.
ground. Same thing, we're monitoring N2. Once this gets to 25, we'll introduce fuel.
Tow is disconnected and bypass pin has been removed. Hand signal on the left. We'll see you next time and have fun up there.
Alright, that was a good start. Tug is disconnecting. Again, spring-loaded switch for engine 1 went to off. We're going to go to continuous. Now it's time to get the generator on the engines. So left engine on, right engine on. Now telling me the APU is available. We don't need it anymore. We're going to turn APU off. APU is on bleed. Turn that off. Now we want bleeds on the engines. Left, right engine bleeds are on, and we can turn our packs back on to auto. You can hear the air conditioning system kick in. Quickly look over all of our switches, make sure everything's where it needs to be. Everything looks great. Alright, we're already in flaps 5. That's for our takeoff. Now I need to put my auto brake switch to RTO. That's for rejected takeoff. If I need to reject our takeoff, we're going to have max brake power. And this is where we're going to go ahead and turn on the auto throttle switch. I don't use VNAV, I already explained why, but we are going to use LNAV. So that's activated. I could push VNAV right now and it would activate as well, but like I said, I do not like climbing out on VNAV. Zibo hunts too much. So when I take off, I'm going to click on vertical speed. My primary flight display here's 10 degrees. Once I have a pitch up nose of about 11 to 12 degrees, I will activate vertical speed. That's roughly going to get me around 2,600 feet per minute climb. I will be in charge of the speed. I've already dialed in 230, means I'm not going to go any faster than that. It gives me time to get my landing gear up, get the flaps all the way up to clean slate. Once I'm there, then I can increase my speed to 250 knots below 10,000 feet. A lot going on during we take off. We're going to fly runway heading.
And then need to make sure that we're above 3,500 feet at right before we get to the 70. I mean, arc from Minneapolis, St. Paul, DOI. All right, parking brakes coming off. Over here to EFB, come to ground services, cabin lighting. Let's reduce our cabin lighting and let's get to takeoff and landing. Taxi lights come on. Right here's my thrust setting. Just to get going on the Zibo, about 40% will get you going. So increase my throttle right there to about 40%. Kind of gets me going, and I'll bring the throttles back to neutral. I remember we're coming up here to taxiway Charlie, so that's right in front of us. Okay, let's just talk about this for real quick and what's going to happen. There'll be a lot of things going on pretty quickly. The Zibo has the toga function set to this microphone button right here. It's a hotspot. This right here activates toga. In real life, and it is modeled on this aircraft, your toga button is right there. But it's too hard to do what I just did to activate this toga button. So what Zibo did is they put a hotspot right here. So this microphone button, that's your toga. In reality, you're pushing that button that's right down there. Now, I have this toga functionality. It's set to my joystick, so it's a button that I've already programmed in my settings. So you're not going to see me reach up here and press this, but I will say it that I'm activating toga. So when I say it, what I'm actually doing is pressing this button right here. What we're going to do is we're going to activate our throttle slowly to about 60%. What we're doing is making sure engine 1 and engine 2 are spooling together. If I can verify that both engines are in sync with each other, once we reach 60%, we're going to bring our throttles up to about 80%. Again, monitoring both throttles are in sync to 80%. When I see that, we're going to go toga. I'll just say it. I will be pressing this button, but I'm actually pressing the button on my joystick to toga. When we're in toga setting, because we're auto throttle, what we're doing is we're going to N1%. Don't again remember what we're going to. DNAV, we're at 90.6% of throttles, or thrust. Then we're going to go to our V1, V-rotate, V2 speeds. At V-rotate, we're going to take off. At V-rotate, we take off, we wait for a positive climb. We're going to raise the landing gear. And then I'm going to pitch up to about right here, about 11-12%. Once I get there, I am going to activate vertical speed. Again, you won't see my mouse come over here and hit vertical speed because again, it's programmed on my joystick, but I will say it, I'm activating vertical speed. You should be able to see the vertical speed come on. When that comes on, I'll have a vertical speed indicator of what my vertical speed is, and then you should see the speed light come on here, meaning I'm in control of the speed. We're already programmed at 230 knots, so Zibo should not get anything faster than 230. She's going to get to 230 and maintain. That gives me time to get landing gear up and all the flaps up to clean speed. Once we're at clean speed, I'll increase the speed to 250. And then we're monitoring that we need to be above 3,500 feet at this 7 DME mark. And once we reach that point, we're going to make a left-hand turn to, what was that again? To the Huger waypoint. So like I said, a lot going on, but we're ready to go. So I'm going to hold my brake down, increase throttles to 60%, hold it, hold my brakes, monitoring both engines are in sync, kind of together to 60%, they're there.
checks. We're slowly climbing. We're at Mach 7.4, going to Mach 7.6. Speed is increasing. That's good. N1, 99%. Engine exhaust temps at 839. Pretty much seen on both engines. N2 at 97.7%. Fuel flow is the same for both engines. At this point, I'd like to come up here to crossfeed and turn the crossfeed on. Alright, we're at Mach 7.7. She's got a little bit higher than what we wanted. She will equalize, but we're maintaining Mach 7.7 right now. Mach 7.6 is where we want to be. We're at 89-90% N1, which is good. We're not taxing the engine. We're just going to maintain this 1,100 feet per minute climb. It's matching pretty much what the flight management computer said we should be at anyway once we reach top of this. We're at 28,000 feet. We're going to 34. So on the front primary flight display here, you have three boxes up here at the top. The left is always the speed, the center is always the lateral navigation mode you're in, and then over here will be all the vertical speed, altitude. So right now we're MCP speed, which means I'm in control of it. We're in LNAV on vertical speed. Once we get close to altitude of 34, you're going to see this change to altitude acquired and to altitude hold. When I see altitude hold, I'll go ahead and put the MCP in VNAV mode. That way we're just maintaining it. I'll let them go ahead and let the flight management computer maintain the speed, program, and altitude. pedestal. Remember, I had Minneapolis, St. Paul dialed in 115.3. This is our ILS frequency of 111.7. We're going to transfer the ILS. ILS is set in 111.7, captain side, first officer side. Radio panels were 122 decibels com, and we're transponding 2,000. Everything's good.
To go.
Last 1,000 feet of altitude as we get close to 34,000 speed. You're going to see vertical speed. This is going to change to altitude required. That's it for your takeoff. Now it's just time to sit back on our way to San Francisco. Let's bring up the charts here real quick. So right here at the Roxanne waypoint, we're on our way to TU, then to Lucky. To San Francisco. We have 3 hours and 22 minutes left to go, distance of 1,286 miles. So we'll reconnect as we get close to San Francisco so we can talk about how we can do the descent, capture an ILS, and land in San Francisco. Alright, back. Alright, so we're at cruise altitude, 34,000 feet. Where are we? Currently over Nebraska right now. I just wanted to show you how XPlane12 looks. Step outside of the aircraft. Take a look at the Zibo. Nice day to be flying. We have no significant weather in front of us. Just have some broken clouds. That turbulence reported. It's about 320 miles in front of us, but it looks like we're going around it. Once we get to close to 250 miles from San Francisco, we're going to reconnect. We have some things to discuss about how to do a descent using the flight management computer, how Boeing works. Specifically the Zibo for using an approach into San Francisco, how to capture an ILS, and like I said, we have 2 hours 51 minutes to go. An hour and a half we'll reconnect, and we'll start the last phase of landing the Zibo using the flight management computer and intercepting an ILS. Alright, we'll be back later. Cheers. Alright, so we are, let's see, we're on the southeast side of Nevada. About 186 miles to start our descent, and we are 300 miles from San Francisco. So remember when we were setting up the flight management computer, I said that we're going to hold off on putting in our arrival. And that's because when you're flying across the country on a 4-hour flight, you never know what conditions are actually going to be at your landing airport. So I like to update that information at about 250 miles from the airport. And we're almost there. We're at like 207 right now. So let's bring up the charts. Navigraph charts, you can see that we're right here, coming over the intersection of Crossed. There's that J148 radio to OAL VOR, and there's Inyo. Let's take a look here where we're at on the flight management computer here. So here we are, here's Crossed, J148 to the OAL VOR, and here's Inyo, and my flight plan ends at this point because I haven't entered in a arrival procedure yet. So let's look at the charts again. San Francisco is right here. We're planning runway 28. This is the METAR. This arrival is telling me the current ATIS information. Real information, they are landing. Arrival is 28 left, 28 right. This is the METAR for San Francisco. Let's go ahead and bring that up and see what we got to our update. San Francisco current winds are 3,009 knots, 10 statutory mile visibility. Skies are clear. Temperature is 23, dew point's 11. Barometric pressure is 30.00. So we're going to stick with runway 28 right. We're going to stick with the Diamond 5 arrival transition Inyo. Let's go ahead and plug that into the flight management computer. So we're going to come back here to flight management computer. You see J148 OAL is where we're at right now. We're going to go direct Inyo. We won't have anything else after that. So we're going to come here to departure and arrival. San Francisco, arrival, hit this RSD key. We are going to be on runway 28 right. I don't see it here on page 105. Let's go to the next page. Still looking for ILS 28 right. Still not here on page 205. Let's go to page 3. There it is, ILS 28 right. Just like that. Transition with our charts again. ILS 28 right, transition is Archie. The transition here is Archie. We're on the Diamond 5 standard arrival. Remember, transition is Inyo right here. Inyo was the last waypoint we're going to, so that's going to be my transition for the Diamond 5 standard arrival. Inyo. And again, now I have the light over the execute. page. Always didn't have anything on it but flows. Flows 280 knots or below between flight level 19,000 and 14,000. All of that is correct. Seeds was 250 knots. That's in there, and we'd be between 10,000 and 12,000. That is correct. Then we go to Freely, 230 knots, 80,000 feet above. And then Archie, 230 knots, and we'd be there exactly at 7,000 feet. Go back to the previous page again. So Diamond is telling me just to be above 27,000 feet, so I'm not really going to overly worry about this one. But Lane is the next waypoint we go to. Speed 280, I need to be between flight level 220 and 260. It's a split right here. Back to volume program. 280, flight level 240. That's 24,000 feet. Execute. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this lane waypoint, get this RS key, and put it into the queue. I'm here to BNAV. And we're going to go on page 2 of 3. We're going to go to the next page, 3 of 3. And I'm going to put this lane right here. Slash, and we said 24,000 feet. And we're going to put this right here under the waypoint and altitude. So we put the lane 24,000 feet, and this is telling me right now, if I wanted to descend right now, I would need to be descending at 440 feet per minute. So if I wanted to hit lane right now, I could hit vertical speed, dial in 440 feet descent, and that would put me at lane at 24,000 feet. So we're going to concentrate on this figure right here, and we'll come back to why here in just a second. First off, let's look at the primary flight display map. We reduce the range here so you can see what I'm talking about. This point right here on the map, we have this little circle that says T/D. That's our target descent, top of descent. This is where the flight management computer would like us to begin our descent based on what's programmed into the flight management computer. Now, if we stayed in VNAV, for the Boeing to automatically descend on a VNAV descent, we would have to decrease our altitude to whatever altitude we want to be down to. And if you want to do that, putting in your altitude before you reach the top of the descent. If you do that, you would just fly through, and once you get to this top of descent, the Boeing aircraft will automatically begin its descent. Just automatically will follow the BNAV path of what you have programmed into your FMC. For the Boeing, BNAV works. It will automatically descend, but she will also descend at a very high rate. Like at times she could be at 2,400 feet per minute descent, all the way up to 3,000 feet per minute descent. I don't like descending that much with the Zibo. I have a hard time controlling the speed. The speed will get away from me. I like to descend at 1,500 feet per minute. So again, just like on takeoffs, I don't do my descent into my airport using VNAV. I'm going to use vertical speed. When I use vertical speed, I'm no longer in N1 with the flight management here once for thrust. Speed autopilot will automatically come up and be engaged, and then I control the speed. So let's look at the flight management computer here again for our economic path descent. We especially when I start getting to around this area, around seeds and flows, even lane where they want me at 280 knots or below. If I let BNAV go, the speed's going to get away from me. It's going to be very hard to slow down the aircraft at 280 knots with a high descent rate. Through experience, I have found out that if I can do a 1,500 feet per minute descent, I can easily control my speeds. So that's the game plan. We're going to descend at 1,500 feet per minute. Already got lane programmed here at 24,000 feet. We're just going to keep monitoring this right here. When we get to 1,200 feet per second, I'll activate the seatbelt sign. That gets the crew ready for arrival. Lets the passengers get buckled into their seatbelts. 1,400 feet. I'll go ahead and dial in 24,000 feet here into the altitude dial there. And then at 1,500 feet, when that gets there, we're going to hit vertical speed. I'll be in control of the speed. It's just going to go ahead and automatically pull up the current Mach that we're at, Mach 746. So that's what I'm expecting to show there. And then I'm going to dial in my vertical speed to a 1,500 feet per minute descent. Beautiful day here in we're still over, I believe, over Nevada. And we're about to cross into California, so as we cross over this mountain, let's take a look outside. Not a cloud in the sky. Yeah, beautiful day. FMC. Problem with the Boeing aircraft is you can't pop out these screens and have them pop up. So it'd be nice to have the FMC sit up here so that I could see this info without having to scroll down. But I keep it in this view for right now. That way I can monitor this vertical speed. Currently we're at coming on 700 feet per minute descent rate. Alright, while we're waiting for this to climb up to 1,500 feet, let's look at our charts again. So after we get to RG, it's telling us to be at 7,000 feet. Let's look at the ILS approach plate. Again, we're going to look at the ILS approach plate for ILS localizer runway 28 right. That's where we're coming into. Localizer frequency is 111.7. Let's double check that we have the localizer frequency dialed in. And there we are, 111.7 for the captain's side, 111.7 on the first officer's side. So we're dialed in for ILS frequency. Let's look at our charts again. We need to be on final approach course of 284 degrees. I have that ILS approach course dialed in here on the captain's side, 284, and on the first officer's side, 284. Alright, so the charts again. Minimum altitude we need to be at is 1,800 feet at the Axmal intersection. That's right here on the chart. Notice we're coming into Archie at 7,000, and it even tells you right here, mandatory, you need to be at 7,000 feet. We're going to be on a heading of 260 to Zillig, 6,000 feet. We're going to be on a heading of 260 to Gerd, no lower.
glide slope and capture the glide slope and localizer for landing in runway 28. Remember, up here at the top under the localizer frequency, I said this is the identifier for this particular localizer, IGWQ, and that's right here as well. ILS frequency DME is 111.7 IGWQ. When we turn on the localizer and everything for primary flight display, as we get close, you're going to see that information pop right up here under the ILS information. You're going to see that ILS identifier, that IGWQ should pull up here, and that's just another confirmation to let you know that you're on the correct frequency for ILS. Decision height again, we need to be at 200 feet dialed in on the radio. That's our no-go-go decision whether we're going to land or not. We have absolutely clear skies. We have no reduced visibility, so we don't really have to worry about this, but we're still going to talk about it. So we're going to make sure that's dialed in. Again, that is right here. Radio, I have 200 feet dialed in. It's 200 feet above ground. Okay, we're at 1,000 feet per minute. Or, I'm sorry, 1,000 feet per second. Coming up to 1,100 feet. Like I said, when I get to 1,100 feet, we're going to turn on the seatbelt sign. I'm going to go ahead and turn on the lights in the back. Flight crew start being able to pick up the trash, start telling passengers it's time to get ready for landing. Alright, we just crossed 1,100 feet per second. So like I said, we are going to go ahead and turn on our seatbelt sign. Seatbelts are on. That lets the crew know we're about to start our descent. Gets the passengers in their seats with their seatbelts on. Then when this gets to 1,400 feet per second, we're going to dial in our altitude settings to 24,000. Now, if you notice here, if we're going to do a VNAV descent, we're going to be descending here in just a couple of miles. This is still like 38 miles away, so you can see we're descending well before that at 1,500 feet per minute. We were going to start our descent way up here where the FMC wants to do it. They're going to be in a pretty high dive, like probably anywhere from 2,800 to 3,000 feet. Not that that's uncomfortable, and not that that's not doable, but with the Boeing Zibo especially, Zibo, you're going to have a hard time controlling the speed. Those high rate of descents. Alright, we're at 1,300 feet per minute. We're almost getting there. We're going to dial in our altitude. Okay, we just passed through 1,400 feet per second, so we're going to now dial in our altitude to 24,000
set. Now we're just waiting to get to 1,500 feet per second. And we're going to activate vertical speed and dial in 1,500. There we are, 1,500 feet per second. Vertical speed comes on, speed automatically sets, stays at Mach 7.4. And let's dial in and descent 1,500 feet per second. Okay, the Zibo now is on the descent, 1,500 feet per second. Remember, we want to be at lane 24,000 feet. So we're going to zoom in here on this map. The Boeing aircraft has this little green arc. That's telling me that we're going to be at that location, 24,000 feet, as long as we're maintaining this speed at this vertical speed. And we're right on that we said we want to be. So that's kind of neat about the Boeing is you have a visual representation of where you're going to be crossing 24,000 feet, or whatever we have dialed into this altitude setting. And with this current speed, this is where we're going to be. Lane is right here, this little star, and like I said, we're right on it. Right where we are. Because we're going to stay in Mach 7.4, the lower we get, the airspeed's going to start climbing. Simple math. The higher we're going in airspeed, maintaining the same vertical speed, that means eventually we're actually going to be approaching the lane well before we even reach it. I expect to see this green arc to start climbing down. When my airspeed over here gets to about 300 knots is when I will go ahead and transition from Mach speed to airspeed. And to do that, we would hit this CO button right here. When I click that, it's just going to transition to whatever we're dialed in over here in airspeed. Right now we're staying at Mach 7.4 on our descent. As we're descending and getting lower, the airspeed is increasing. Let's look at our charts real quick. Here's where we are. Diamond intersection, we need to be above flight level 270, max speed 290 knots. We're at 29,000. We're only 9.6 miles away from Diamond, but we need to make sure I don't fall below 27,000 feet so that we're in accordance to the star. Also, I can't be above 290 knots. We're currently at 281 and increasing, so actually right now I'm going to go ahead and take over airspeed. I hit the CO button, we're at 284, I'll just increase that to 285. That way, we stay below 290 knots at Diamond with the star comes. Next, we need to be at lane between flight level 260, 220, we have dialed in 240, to split that in the middle, but we need to be at speed at 290 knots. So we're just about over the Diamond intersection, 2.2 miles to go. We need to be above 27,000 feet. We're only at 28,000 right now, so we're just fine at that. Once it's below 290 knots, I've already locked us in at 285, so we're not going to go over that. Here at lane, it wants us between flight level 260, 220 speed 280. Go ahead and decrease our speed to 280 knots. After we cross lane, the next intersection we're worried about is flows. Need to be between flight level 190, 140. Let's just go and split that and call it 16,000. So let's get the flows at 16,000. So we can come down here to our lakes. Hit flows. We said 16,000 slash 16,000. Go back to our VNAV. Put that into our waypoint altitude. And that's telling me to get to flows at 16,000, we need to be at a very high speed. In fact, we're going to go ahead and dial in our altitude to 16,000. So you can see right here that we're going to be well past flow before we can get to 16,000. So we're going to decrease our airspeed right now. 240. The reason I'm doing that is I'm trying to get the aircraft slowed down so that we can be a little bit closer to that altitude and we can be at overflows. Now, I have a tailwind 15 knots, so that's preventing me from really slowing down the Zibo. So we're going to go ahead and put on our speed brakes. As we're slowing to 240 knots, you'll see that my vertical speed is decreasing dramatically to get to flows at 16,000. We're already down to 2,100 feet per minute. Airspeed's increasing a little bit because the Zibo has a hard time maintaining speed anything above 1,500 feet per minute, but we gotta get there. Once my airspeed gets here to 250, if it continues to climb, well then I'll use my air brakes to slow it down. Or I'm sorry, speed brakes. transition altitude, so let's take a look at the chart here real quick. San Francisco met our 3009 knots, 10 statutory miles, clear, temperature 23, dew point 11, barometric pressure is 30.00. So let's go ahead and preload 300 right here. Through transition altitude, press the standard button, we're at 300. At this time, I like to go ahead and turn on the landing lights. I'll turn on my runway lights for more visibility. We're at 255 knots. I'll go ahead and turn on the speed brakes to slow us down. All right, let's look at our charts again real quick. What I'm concerned about is we need to be at RG right at 7,000 feet. So let's go ahead and plug that into the flight manager computer here. Legs. RG slash 7,000. Vertical nav. Put that in waypoint descent. We need to be at 1,800 feet per minute right now, so we can decrease that. 1,800 feet. Dial in my altitude here, 7,000, so we can see where we're at here. Here's RG, we're right on the money. RG is 7,000 feet, and FMC is telling us to have a vertical descent profile of 1,800 feet. And that's where we're at. At Freely, it wants us at 230 knots, so we're going to go ahead and slow us down to 230. Still have a tailwind, 1,800 feet per minute descent, so Zibo has his hard time slowing down. Go ahead and again put on the speed brakes. Alright, so we're approaching the point where we're going to intercept the glide slope. So what I like to do over here is on the first officer side. It's this switch right here that's over here. We're going to put this on approach. And hit the center button for the center. We have the ILS approach course 284. That's dialed in. We haven't picked up the ILS frequency yet, but that's I like to have this over here on this display so that I can see it. Right now we're at 1,600 feet per minute. We get to Archie at 7,000, so we'll decrease our vertical speed 1,600. Speed brakes will come off. We're at 230 knots. Now we need to program our landings. We're going to come here to initialization reference. I always like to land at 30 degrees flaps. Tell us that to be at 143 knots, so we're going to select that and then put that here into flap speeds. Wind correction automatically gives me a 5 knot wind correction to add to the flap speed approach. Let's look at our charts again real quick. Here in San Francisco for runway 28 right, we have an 8 knot headwind, we have a 3 knot crosswind. Rule of thumb is 10 knots or below, we're just going to add 5 knots to the reference. 5 knots, if I had a 5 knot crosswind, I would add another knot to the standard 5. I would add 6, but we're not over 5 knots, so all we're going to do is a 5 knot additional VREF approach. And that's an automatic right there, but I like to go ahead and plug that in. So what we're saying is our touchdown speed is 143 knots. Our approach speed is going to be 5 knots above that, so that's equals 148 knots. That's my approach speed when we're on final. All right, we're below 245 knots. We can go ahead and give ourselves some flaps. Flaps 1. Notice the red tape comes up here at 250. It means I can't be above that speed for flaps. That red tape will stay there all the way to flaps 5. That's what we're going to go to, all the way to flaps 5. So there's flaps 1, flaps 2. And we're going to go to flaps 5. Notice over here on the first option display, we finally got the magenta line that's not solid. It means we're picking up the ILS frequency. And there's that ILS identifier I told you about. IGWDs, that matches. We're going to go ahead and slow down to 190 knots. We're getting ready to intercept the glide path here in a little bit. We need to be at 3,000 feet. Look at our charts here again. ILS approach plate. We need to be at 3,000 feet at 7. So you can see here we need to be 3,000 feet here at 7. We're actually be just a little bit lower than that, so I can decrease my vertical speed to about maybe 1,200. Get that green arc to be right over 7. Look at my airspeed tape over here. We're at 214. This yellow line right here is telling me where the next speed I should be to put the next snap or flap step. We're slowing to 190 knots, so we're just about ready to go to flaps 10. Over there, flaps 10. Over here, looking at this primary flight display, we still haven't intercepted the localizer. When we do get close to intercepting the localizer, this magenta line is going to turn solid and it's going to start slowly drifting towards the center here. This diamond, as long as it's above this horizontal line, it means we are below the glide slope, which is what we need. If this diamond was below this center line, it means we're too high. We never would intercept the glide slope. The only way that you can intercept the glide slope is this diamond has to be above this horizontal line. All right, we're coming up to 190 knots. We can go ahead and go flaps 15. Now when we get to Dumba here, you can see we're going to do on this final approach course. This is the runway right here. We're about 15 miles out. So as we get close to Dumba, we're going to actually make that turn by itself. Right now, as you should start seeing right here already, we have the ILS coming in. We're going to go ahead and go to approach. Now we've intercepted the localizer. Confirmed right here on VOR and localizer. Glide slope, we haven't captured it yet because it's grayed out.
1,000 to go.
You can see we're still below the glide slope, which is good. So now we're going to fly into it. Decrease our speed All right, we're at 3,000 feet. We've captured the localizer, indicated by here. We're at altitude hold. We're just waiting now for this diamond to get right here over this solid horizontal line. That means we're going to capture the glide slope. Here we are at 165 knots. Go ahead and go flaps 20. Flaps 30. We've now captured the glide slope. We're on glide slope. We're on localizer. Let's go ahead and go to our approach speed. 148. We're at 2,900 feet. Landing gear comes down. Monitoring that, get 3 green. 3 green, landing gear is locked and down. Airport's right here in front of us. Come to runway 28 right.
2,500.
I'm going to go ahead and disconnect autopilot. We are on glide slope, we are on glide path, but we have a beautiful day here, so there's no reason to stay on autopilot. So I'm going to disconnect autopilot. Clear the warning. Now we're hand flying. Now what we're going to do is we're going to try to stay as close as we can to these horizontal X's here, and that's going to put us right on glide slope. Computer's no longer in control except for auto throttle. We're letting it keep auto throttle at 148 knots. You can see the PAPI here. We have 2 white, 2 red. We're right on glide slope. Also indicator right here. The diamond's right in the center. We're staying right on glide slope. I'm going to go ahead and take over auto throttle. As auto throttle comes on, clear the warning. I know how to control the throttles. And I'm going to try to maintain 148 knots approach. We're a little high, coming down. Showing a 5-knot crosswind. Keep it at 148 knots approach.
1,000.
Good. 2 white, 2 red. Diamond indicator is telling me I'm a little low, so we're just going to bump up the nose here just a little bit. We're at 150 knots. Let's decrease throttle a little bit, get back to 148.
Light slow. Light slow. Light slow. Light slow.
500.
Light slow. Light slow. Light slow. Light slow.
All right, we're at 148
Light slow.
on speed.
Light slow.
I have no winds.
Light slow. Light slow. Light slow. Light slow. Light
Approaching
slow.
minimums.
Light slow. Light slow.
Minimums.
Minimums continue. Little flare here.
50. 40. 30. 20.
Decrease throttle slightly.
10. 9.
runway turnoff lights come off. Crossing 28 left. APU, we're going to go ahead and start it. Speed brake, retract, flaps, retract. Take this gate right over here. APU's on, going to put the generators onto the APU. Alright, we got the marshaller bringing us in. Alright, parking brakes are on. Turn the fuel off, engine 1, fuel off, engine 2. Beacon lights come off. Seatbelt signs off. Fuel pumps off. Down here at the center console, we'll turn off the transponder. Flight directors come off. Come up over here on the overhead. Well, actually, just come over here to front of the flight bag. Ground services. Let's connect GPU. Set the trunks. Come up here to overhead panel. Ground power is available. We're going to connect ground power. We can turn APU off. Engine hydraulics. We'll turn those off. Engine bleeds to off. Since we don't have an APU, packs come off. Trim air we'll leave on. We'll turn the probe heats off. Window heats off. Iris will just turn to a line. Yaw damper comes off. Emergency lights off. Clear warnings. That's it. We're in San Francisco. Now, who doesn't like looking at replays? Let's check out our replay here. Beta 6 12.3.0. I think it's one of the best flight simulators in the world. Xplane is coming a long way, and we have one heck of a roadmap in front of us. It's just going to keep getting better. So this was a basic tutorial flight management computer autopilot use of a Boeing 737, specifically using the Zibo aircraft. You know, a lot of people come on here and say there's different ways of doing things, and yes, you are correct. There are more advanced options that you can use from a flight management computer. I'm totally aware of all of that. This was just a basic tutorial how I kind of do things. I hope it helps. I hope the new flight simmer that's coming on board and watch this video. Maybe it helps you get up in the air and understand that some of the functions are used for and how to use them. This is part one of a two-part series. What I plan on doing next will be Airbus 320, and I'll show the similarities and the differences using an Airbus autopilot system. Even though they're using the same concept of LNAV and VNAV and autopilot, it's just different terminology and different ways of how you go about operating those systems with an Airbus. But that's what I'm going to bring up. That'll be video number 2. We're going to bring up the Airbus and kind of do the same thing. Alright, that's the end of this video. Appreciate you guys coming along with me. We'll see you on part 2. Alright, cheers.